Like, I know a lot of this shit because I read a lot of shonen, bro.
Are you sure about that?
Good after evening, morning, baby. It's your boy, the Schizo Man again. I'm over here, baby. I don't know, I'm talking a bunch of fucking nonsense. I apologize in advance. It's Sunday night, and I'm sad because tomorrow I gotta get up early to go to work. Woo! But I wanted to record this before I went and took a late night shower and went to bed. So, I've been skimming through the internet and social media as I always do, and I ran across me going through a bunch of different fucking My Hero versus Black Clover videos because, of course, the two newer shonen that are around the same length and have similarities while also having differences. So, of course, everybody and their grandmother was comparing them, and I ran across a video. And the funny thing is that the premise of this video has very little to do with that video, other than a statement that I thought was absolutely hilarious, which is I think the dude's name is Triggered Senpai. He made a video comparing the two, but it was a particular line about Vanessa that drove me up the fucking wall. Now, this video isn't really a critique of that video in its entirety, although I was somewhat tempted to do it because although there are things in that video I agree with, there's a bunch of shit in there where I'm like, bruh, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I guess what irked me is that in the video he mentions something along, and I'll probably play clips during these sections, but he mentions in the video something along the lines of like, he knows all he's making the joke that a lot of people make about Black Clover being predictable, saying and he was like, oh, I read a lot of shonen, I've watched a lot of shonen, I know how this shit plays out. And what cracked me up is that he said that, but then earlier in the video he also says this thing about Vanessa.
Like, for instance, the Vanessa girl, right? The witch bitch, whatever the fuck you want to call her, Vanessa. It was a situation where she had a flashback about how she was being trapped in the cage, right? And by the way, this is what Black Clover fans call development. Even though after all this bitch just goes back to being the fucking drunk witch. But that's neither here or there, right? She has a flashback about, you know, her being trapped in the cage. And after all that shit, after all her flashback, right? It leads to her getting this OP ass power up, which allows her to fucking control destiny itself, right? She gets this cat and it allows her to control destiny. She gets all this power up shit off of a fucking flashback. And guess what happens after this flashback? She continues to be a drunk bitch. And it's like, okay, like, what was the point of that flashback if you're just gonna go back to being the same stupid ass character?
I don't think he understands what the purpose of a flashback is. I don't think he understands what flashbacks are for. I don't think flashbacks, I don't, and it cracked me up because, and so that's the reason why this video is titled Flashback 101. I don't understand. So that's what this video is about. To explain a concept of a flashback and what the purpose of a flashback is and why that comment to me was stupid as fuck when you're like, Vanessa had a flashback about Yami saving her from the birdcage, and then this bitch went right back to being an alcoholic, and I'm like, do you think the flashback was supposed to change your character at all? So let me give you context of what a flashback is, and for anyone else who's curious. A flashback, usually handled in anime and manga, is meant to do one or two things, and usually in most cases is both. Either A, provide understanding of an event that the reader themselves have not yet seen, or maybe even a character. Usually when a flashback is told, it's either spoken to like the characters who wouldn't know, or it's done like an internal monologue kind of thing, where it's referenced and like it just shows itself without it being explicitly said. Like this, I'm talking like it's not explicitly told, it just happens because it's poignant to a situation. The whole purpose of a flashback is to give you understanding of things we don't know about, or to give context to why a character is a certain way. Most flashbacks, good flashbacks, do both. They give you context and they also give you history on things you didn't know. I don't understand why people think that leads to character development. It doesn't. Usually it just gives context as to why a character acts a certain way. That's the whole premise of a flashback. Or in some cases, you get to understand more of a character. For example, the best case I can give you, and this is a spoiler for Sket Dance, so I'm warning you in advance. So if you know Switch from Sket Dance, you know that he's like a dude who wears wear this super nerdy outfit and like talks through a computer. If you watch his flashback, you'll notice that what he used to look like doesn't look anything the way he looks like now. That flashback was giving context of his history, but also explaining why he went from looking like that to this. Like that's the whole premise of like that's what the flashback is supposed to do. So since Trigger Senpai used Vanessa as his example, I'm gonna use Vanessa as my example to explain what I mean by giving history and then also giving like context to why a character is the way they are. And Vanessa's interesting because Vanessa also requires some level of implications that some people don't like to do. Some people just like to be told every fucking thing, even though it's not that crazy. I'll agree that the flashback isn't anything crazy. It's not anything inherently deep. But when you say you understand shonen and then you didn't even understand the premise of Vanessa's backstory, I'm a little concerned to trust you as an authority on proper shonen storytelling. So to give context, Vanessa is the drunken witch in Black Clover, and she is a part of the Black Bulls. Vanessa's flashback is shown off, I believe, it's teased during the Underwater Sea Temple arc, but it is further explored in the Witch's Forest arc. So Vanessa's flashback goes as follows. She was the daughter of the Witch Queen, and I guess the Witch Queen had foretold that Vanessa at some point in her life would develop this ridiculous fucking ability to change the threads of fate. Vanessa's mother, for some reason, thought the best thing to do would be is to lock her in a cage until she gained that ability. I think the idea is if you put her under pressure to learn it, she'll just fucking learn it. Spoiler, she didn't just fucking learn it. So she spent the majority of her childhood in a fucking bird cage where she low-key was going insane, going as far as making like thread dolls with her like her string magic, making these thread dolls and pretending like they were actual people, and she was having conversations with low-key. Vanessa was going fucking insane in a bird cage, and she was afraid to defy her mother, so she just stayed in the fucking bird cage. In comes Yami doing some main character shit, fucking around and ending up in different areas, and ended up fucking with the Witch Queen way earlier than he had any need to. But hey, look, even he admits it in the flashback. I can't fuck with that Witch Queen right now. I need to get the hell out of here. But he accidentally ends up breaking Vanessa out, breaking the cage Vanessa was in. And Vanessa initially is conflicted about going with him because hey, he's a man, which the Witch's Forest is a women only forest, on top of the fact that it's hidden from the world off naturally. So she had never seen a man before, and she knew she wasn't supposed to go out of the cage. And so she's like, what should I? And so she's asking Yami what to do, and she's like, decide for yourself. And she decides to run out of the cage, and she leaves the Witch's Forest and doesn't come back until the events of the Witch's Forest arc in the manga or anime, whichever. It's been adapted in both. And she goes to being she eventually ends up turning into the drunken witch as we know today. That's her backstory. It's nothing overly crazy, it's nothing overly complex. But what trips me out is when people are like, I don't understand. The bitch still went back, she gets this OP power of the cat, and then she goes back to being a drunk bitch. And I'm like, you do realize the whole premise of Vanessa as a character is two major concepts: freedom and family, and they kind of lean into each other. When you spend your whole life locked into a cage and you are literally under the inherent strict rules and probably fear of your mother, you tend to like, when you rebel hard. And so when Vanessa got her taste of freedom, she fully indulged in the freedom that she was given. Sorry, I did like a weird country accent and it fucked me up. But she freely indulges in the freedom she was given. Even if you see some of the flashback sections when she's going through like her past, I think there's a sequence with her and Finral. There's a couple other sequences with like Luck, and then there's a couple of sequences with like Noelle and Asta, and it comes into this idea that like the more time she was out, the way she was able to develop herself personally. It's kind of like how some kids, they get out of college and they get out of high school and they're like, I'm moving away from my parents because they need to find themselves without the influence of their parents. That's literally what Vanessa did. She literally went out to the world and she just indulges herself. Why do you think she's a character who drinks and a character who's half naked all the time? because she represents freedom. She drinks because usually when you're inebriated is the most like open and free you are mentally. I mean, obviously you're also impaired, but you got it. I guess it's equivalent exchange, baby. But that's the premise behind the drinking, and then obviously the no clothes is because the freest a human being can be physically is without any restriction, which people would view clothes as a restriction. That's the whole freedom is like built into her design, for God's sakes. She's a free spirit, alcoholic, drinking witch because she spent her whole life being fucking like caged like a goddamn animal. When she finally got out, she wanted to fully explore herself. And the family part is pretty obvious. You find it even comes full circle. The crazy ability that she would get, which is the cat, Rouge, the red thread of fate, guess how she gets it? She gets it when she's afraid of her family being lost, which she views as her true family, which is the Black Bulls. So, and which also comes full circle because the Witch Queen realizes at the end of the arc after Vanessa beats her that if I had just let her do what she wanted and choose her own life, she would have just developed the power naturally. I didn't need to fucking force her into some crazy shit. And guess what? She developed the power naturally when she developed the true bonds with her family, which isn't even her, the Witch Queen. It's the fucking Black Bulls. That's why she says at the end of the arc, she goes, "This power is made to protect the people I have close bonds with. Me and you don't have any bonds." Because she doesn't view the Witch Queen as family. She views the Black Bulls as family. That's why Rouge really only works with the Black Bulls. If you notice, the rule of Rouge is literally, if you're a Black Bull member, you're family, and nothing will harm you if Rouge is out. I also find it ridiculous that people call it a broken ass ability when it's been countered numerous times in the chapters following her getting it. For example, as long as you have more mana than Vanessa, you can outlast Vanessa, and then guess what? The cat's gone. Dante did it. Elf Luck did it. Or Rufu, I think is the elf's name that was possessing Luck. Like, it's not like it's a fucking... It's not... And look, and I'm just... And like I said, some of that's inferred, right? Because technically the manga never says she drinks alcohol because of this reason. So I don't understand why people think that all of a sudden when you got her flashback, you were going to realize that, oh, by the way, she's a different character now. No, the premise of her drinking alcohol goes into the freedom concept, which is what she's presents on top of the family bond shit, which is represented not only in her connection with the Black Bulls, like how she calls them siblings. Hell, she calls Luck her little brother, even though they're not technically related, because she views the Black Bulls family. But Rouge's power reflects it, how it only protects Black Bull members because she only views the Black Bull as family. And because she had the freedom to live her life, she was able to come to that conclusion on her own. Not because Yami told her to do so. Yami didn't even tell her to follow her. Yami was like, do what you want. And she happened, and she said, fuck it, I'm going to make the choice and follow him. So it tripped me out when you got dudes online talking this dumb shit about how, like, oh, I'm an authority on shonen. I've watched Naruto, I've watched Bleach, I've watched One Piece. But you couldn't understand a basic concept like flashbacks don't equal character development. It just provides history and context to a character or characters depending on the damn flashback. And Vanessa's, which is pretty insanely straightforward, you couldn't understand that a simple thing like, oh, that's the why she drinks. Oh, that's why she doesn't wear any clothes. And then here's the kicker of it all. You barely see Vanessa drink after this point in the manga, by the way. I think it's in the Star Festival. She drinks a couple of times, but you know what she's doing in the other upcoming arcs? She went to go help Magna train like a big sister, because even though she talks that shit, she generally cares about Magna. She fucking tried to help when it came to fighting Dante and shit, actively telling the other Black Bull members to get behind her, protect her. We're not even talking about the fucking Elf arc where she was doing the same shit. That is literally her whole thing is bonds and freedom. And because she had the freedom to choose, she can make those bonds with whoever she wants. And she chose to make the Black Bulls her true family, and that's where her bonds currently lie. And motherfuckers on here said, I understand shonen, but you couldn't get a simple witch's backstory. Thank you and good night. That's what you supposed to do in that situation. You can't, you want to call them stupid? Yeah, probably. But hey, remember, I'm just trying to be objective. Woo!
And it's another question I got for the Black Clover fans, right? The scene where everyone turned to elves because the reincarnation magic. How is it that Yuno is the only person that has enough will to break the fucking magic spell? Like, he's the only one that can be like, nah, I'm not gonna let this elf take over me. Asta was really good. Let's go fuck these niggas up. Like, that shit, I'm like, how the fuck is Yuno the only person that's able to do this?
Are you joking? He was possessed by an unborn baby, you dumb fuck. Why in the world do you think an unborn child would have more will than a fucking teenage boy? You know what? I'm done. You know what?